Hey everyone, this is Daniel. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Power App's ticketing system with sentiment analysis. So we'll take an existing ticketing system, an already working existing ticketing system, and we'll take it to the next level by adding in AI cognitive services to it. One of the things we do in that is using sentiment analysis. So it analyzes the text that comes in the tickets, and then it can tell us whether we should escalate that or not. So stick around, this is going to be awesome. But first, here's my intro video. So let's get started. So here's an overview of what we're going to achieve. We're going to take an existing ticketing app. This is a Canvas app where I come in, I go ahead and submit a ticket, and I put all this information in. I'm going to take this type of app and I'm going to transform it to something like this, where I can now go ahead and assess which one of them are critical based on the cognitive analysis sentiment assessment on this type of text which is there. And then I can go ahead and even put in these type of emojis over here to say, hey, which one is negative? And then if I want to even go ahead and escalate that to a higher level. And all of that is done using Power Automate Flow in the backend. And you see the sentiment analysis is right there. Now, before we go and start over there, I want to spend a little bit of time on what is this whole sentiment analysis and how do you go and connect that to your Power Automate Flow. So if I go to my Power Automate and if I click on data and if I click on connections, in the connections, I will go ahead and pretend like I'm creating a new connection, which is right up over here, plus new connection. And on the right, if I do a search, I'm going to go and search for cognitive services. Basically, I just searched, I put in cognitive, and this is the one, Azure Cognitive Services for Language. If you go and click on it, it's going to ask you for an API key, account key, and the site URL. Well, where do I get that? For that, we got to jump into Microsoft Azure Services. So right here on Microsoft Azure Services, if you don't already see cognitive services, that's fine. Go to the top and you can type in the cognitive services, and that's what you select, cognitive services. So when you go and select that, you'll come to cognitive services, and then on the left side, you click on all cognitive services, and then plus, you go and add that, and this is the one, language. That's the one that you want to select, and once you select it, you see sentiment analysis is one of the default features. So basically, you go and click on through all of this click process, and then you go and set up all the information that you want, and then finally, you go in and get the API information that you want, and that is what you go in and apply over here. Now, this is something that you might already have access to, or you can go and go to your Azure admin team, or you can go to your M365 admin team. They are the ones who will go and set this up. But you just want to make sure that the three important things that you want is the API key, what is the account key, and basically the site URL. So just make sure you get all of this. And then after that, you will have your connector ready. Now, since I already have that done, I'm going to skip this step, but at least I walked you through that. So here's the app that we're going to modify. And as I go out of the preview, this is what it looks like. But before we start tweaking over here, I need to add 2 additional columns to the backend data source. And in my case, the backend data source is a SharePoint list. So here it is. Here's my SharePoint list. And as I scroll to the right, you will see that these are the 2 columns that I have. But let's go to the settings and the list settings so you can actually see what those column types are. So right here on the bottom, you will see that I've got sentiment score, and it's a type number. And then I also have sentiment, which is a type single line of text. For that sentiment score, which is a type number, if you go and take a look at it, I've left it to the default automatic. But if you don't really want to change it, make sure that you leave it at least to 2 decimal places, because that's sometimes how the sentiment score comes in. So keep that in mind. Either leave it automatic or at least up to 2 decimal places. All right. But now that we've come over here out to the settings, you will see that our list is ready. Another little tidbit is that if you've updated the list while the app is open, just come to your data source over here, and for that ticket section, go ahead and refresh it. Otherwise, you can even close the app and open it again. I just want to make sure that the change that we made on the SharePoint list does reflect over here. So keep that in the back of your mind. Cool. All right, so let's pause over here, switch gears, and focus on Power Automate, because I want to build that flow to go ahead and start doing some sentiment analysis. And once we actually have that and it's updated in the SharePoint list, we can update this section in the Canvas app and it'll actually make some difference. So in the Power Automate, before I go there, I always make sure that I know what is the environment my app is in. And this is just a personal preference that I have. That way I can just keep a relationship between both the apps and the flows being in the same environment. So here I'm just going to make sure that my environment is Christian Family Production or Prod. Over here when I come, yep, it's the same environment. So I'll continue building my flow over here. So now I can come over here, I'm going to click on a flow. This creating of the flow is going to be automatic. So when I click on automatic, my trigger is going to be when an item is created. By the way, over here, you can simply just click on skip. You don't have to select it over there, because you can do the same thing over here as well. I can click on SharePoint, and the SharePoint is when an item is created. Then over here, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to say Service Desk Ticket Sentiment Analysis Demo. All right, and I'll make sure I go and save that as well. So we've got that. Oh, actually, I can't save it because I haven't populated my trigger yet. That's fine. We'll save it later on. So now I just want to make sure that I've got my correct site. I can see my site over here is the POC one. So I'll select the POC one. And then my ticket, my list name is Service Desk Tickets. So I'll just make sure I can do that over here. Click on the bottom. Somewhere over here is the Service Desk Tickets. I can even type that in. Service Desk Tickets. And I got it. Cool. So now that we've got the data coming in, the next thing that I need to focus on is that sentiment piece. Now the sentiment piece sometimes gets a little tricky just because it's asking for a lot of things and you don't know what to give. So I'll walk you through that. By the way, I've actually done a video on this and I'll put that in the link below. It was a new version of sentiment analysis. I walked you through step by step. I'm going to walk you through the exact same thing over here. So now I'll click on the plus new step, and over here, I'll just type in sentiment. The moment I do that, the one it gives me is sentiment version 3.0. That's the one that I want to select, all right? And then it just gives you a lot of information. So what exactly is it, Daniel, that I need to put over here? So here's a couple of things. Now, it asks for a document ID 1. Over here, you need to put in a number. So just go ahead and put in something. I go ahead and put in number 1 because I don't know what the document ID is. You could go ahead and put in the ID number 1 over here as well. But just for me, for starting, I'm going to go ahead and put in the document number. Next, I need to go and actually give it some text. So we got to remember what side of that SharePoint list is the text coming from. And a quick way to go is I go back to my SharePoint list. Subject, actually this column called subject, which is the original title column, that's the one which has got some text in it. But this is the one, the description. That's the one that I want to do actual sentiment analysis. So I'll go and grab the description one. So for the sentiment analysis action in the documents text -1, this is where I want to go ahead and grab description. And so the moment I do that, now actually I can go and save it. And honestly, we are done providing sentiment analysis, the text to go and analyze. So now let's go and work on the next steps. What I have to do is I got to build two variables. One variable is actually going to get the sentiment value variable, like how much % that is. And the other one is going to get the sentiment type. Was it neutral? Was it positive, negative? So for that, I need to create two variables. So I'm going to come and click on the plus new step. I'll just type in var. In my var, I'm going to click on variables. And in my variables, I'm going to now go and initialize a variable. So my first one I'm going to do is called var sentiment. And for that one, I'll go and change that to the string. And we are done. In fact, I'll just go and rename that one as well. And for the initialize, I'll call this initialize to the var sentiment. All right. Next, I'll go and click on plus new step, and I'm going to create another variable. So I'll go and select the variables. I'll click variables over here, and I'm going to go ahead and initialize a variable. This one, though, it's of a type object, because this is the one that we're going to go and get the value, the actual numerical value of that sentiment. And for that, I'll go and say that as a var value. Do the same thing up over here. I'll go ahead and rename it, and I'll just change that to the initialize var value. And there you go. We went and got our two variables done. Next, let's go ahead and get the sentiment value and assign it to our variable. So for that, I'll go ahead and now click on plus new step. And for that, again, I'll go and switch on variable. I'll select the variables, and I'm going to go ahead and now set variable. Now over here, there's something interesting that's going to happen, and it happens automatically and it happens really fast. So I want you to keep an eye on that. First thing I do is I go and select my variables. I'm going to say var sentiment. Here, I need to go ahead and search for sentiment. And the first one that you see, sentiment, moment I click that, watch, this is going to go ahead and go inside and apply to each. It does that automatically, and it is by design. You didn't do anything wrong, it is by design. All right, watch, all right? So I'm going to click on sentiment, and immediately I did that, it went and did that into the apply to each. Leave it as is. There's nothing you have to do, because in our case, we're going ahead and sending in one sentence, and the whole sentence will go and get analyzed by sentiment analysis, and it'll come ahead and give us this one sentiment value, all right? So I'm just going to go and click on save, and then next we got to work on a switch type of statement. So what I'll do is I got to make sure first I'm outside, not just outside this section here, but outside the entire apply to each. So now I'm going to click on plus new step, and then here I'll go ahead and click on switch. Click on the switch control, and this is where we'll go and continue. So right now over here, you go ahead and select your var sentiment, and then thereon you'll go ahead and add each of these cases. Now I'm going to pause over here and tell you what was the importance of using this variable, because you just noticed it, right? That if I would have used this individual sentence in a switch, it will go ahead and put in a switch inside the apply to each, and it'll make you go crazy. That is the big reason why we went ahead and used that apply to each, because I know what some of you are thinking is that, Daniel, at the end of the day, I'm just getting one value from that sentiment. Basically, it's just going to be a sentiment, neutral or whatever, it's positive. Why are you putting that into a variable? You could have just gone ahead and used that sentiment. I do it because of this thing over here. It automatically, Power Automate automatically goes and puts that into an apply to each. And for that reason, I need to use that variable. Because right now, I can just assign that variable in the switch and it doesn't do that whole apply to each, right? All right, so the one of the things I want to do over here now is I'm going to have 3 cases. So I'll actually go ahead and now select, I'll go and do a rename. So this one is going to be my case positive. And in positive, you want to go ahead and type in the text over here. Now, when the sentiment analysis does its analysis and it gives us the text, it always gives it in lowercase. So don't put in inside the equals, don't put in a positive with an uppercase P, put lowercase p and spell it correctly. So in my case, it's Positive. Yep, that's correct, Tive. All right, and so then for the next one, I want to go and click on plus. And the plus, this is going to be case neutral. So I'll rename that, case neutral, right there. And then in this case, just make sure you type the same neutral, but with a lowercase. So neutral. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and add my third one, which is case negative. So now I'll come back, scroll a little bit to the right, click on the ellipsis, rename, dash, and it is negative. Also make sure I type in negative, all with the lowercase. And we've actually built the framework of the switch case. So now I want to focus my attention on the positive one, all right? So I'll click over here on add action. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Let me go and search for var, which is variable, select variables, and then I'm going to go and select for set variable. Now in the set variable, I'll select the drop down, and the one that we need is var value. All right, so here's the first tip that I'm going to give you. The one that we want to get is called as the confidence score. It's confidence score. But what happens is when you scroll down over here, it's either not easily found or you just don't find it at all. So what I do is I just come over here and I search for confidence score. The moment you do it, it selects it, goes into an apply to each, which is all fine, but at least we've gotten our data, all right? Now in the apply to each over there, you can go and rename that, I'll just leave it as is, because what I want to do next is I want to skip this add action because I don't want it to put it inside the apply to each. I want to go and do it the next one, all right? So in the next one, I'm going to go and now update that SharePoint item. So I'll go and search for SharePoint, and I can click on the SharePoint over here, and I'm going to go and now do a search for update. So when I do an update, the one I'm going to look for is update item. And then here I go and search for my SharePoint list, the one that we used. It was the POC side. So that was the POC side. My SharePoint list was the service desk tickets. So I can just type in service desk tickets. And then I go and grab the ID. The ID is the one that was created. Not sure why that error is there, but I'll ignore that for now. I'll come over here and put that ticket thing. Oh, there you go. The error actually disappeared. And then for other things like my subject, it is a mandatory one. So I selected, so I have to go and select that one. So I'll just quickly do a search for subject. And in my subject, I select the item is created. And then here I can go ahead and do 2 things. First of all, since this is a positive one, I'm going to keep the priority value to low. All right. In the negative one, we're going to bump this up. But for this case, it is the positive one. You have a choice to let flow dictate what is the status of this. In my case, since it's positive, I can go and keep this to low. But for the sentiment score, well, that's the one that I want to go ahead and assign the sentiment score. And the sentiment score in this case is actually the one that I get from positive. So type in positive, right? Because this is from the positive side. Again, it's a positive one. I want to get the positive sentiment score. And the moment I did that, see how it went and put it into the apply to each. You may get this error. For some reason, I'm getting this error when I'm demoing it. I'm going to ignore it for now, all right? And then I'll go ahead and change the sentiment to positive. I'll just go type that in. And we are done on this side. I'm going to go and click on save. It is completed. I'll go and get out of it. So maybe that will solve our flow problem. Again, this is all real world demos type of situations. So I'm just showing you, hey, that I got that error over there. That's fine. Let me go and now fix that error, okay? So we actually went outside and I made sure I got the first apply to each. Great. I went to the second apply to each. I see my SharePoint list and we're good. I see the error has gone away. So now we just got to switch gears and work on the neutral side. So I'll go and expand my case neutral. And over here, I'm going to go and now set the value again for that variable. So I'll go and search for var. In this case, I'll go ahead and now just select the variables. and I'll go ahead and do a set variable value. The variable I'm going to select again is the var value. And then here I'll go ahead and search again for that confidence score. So I'll do a confidence scores, select it, goes into the apply to each, which is fine. Finally, in the next step, we'll go ahead and put it into our SharePoint list. So I'll just search for SharePoint. Oh, I keep putting that G over there. Select that, select for update, it's the update item. And then we'll go ahead and finish this piece off over here. Right there. I'll go ahead and search for my list. It's not something to do with the tickets, so I'll just search for service desk tickets. Again, got that error over there. I'll ignore it. That's fine, see, it went away. Subject is going to be the subject. So I can also search for subject, which basically it's also a good idea to start searching these things instead of scrolling down. That can actually get you a little bit hectic. Now here's where we can change something. Since it is neutral, you have the option from changing from low to go ahead and setting it to maybe medium, all right? So I'll do it for the sake of this demo to put it as medium because the status itself is neutral. Sentiment analysis said that this is a neutral, so it just makes sense that I'll put my priority also as medium, all right? Finally, the sentiment score, well, the sentiment score is going to come from the confidence scores. So I'll go select the confidence scores. That goes into an apply to each. And then also over here, I can go ahead and also put in the sentiment, which in this case is neutral. So I'll do that. And another thing that we got to do over here, which I also missed it on the other one, is what is the status of this app now? Because the moment we went ahead and submitted it, it's a new item. Well, now that we've submitted it in, the value, we can go ahead and change that to in progress, all right? Let Power Automate handle that piece of the magic. So I'll come in and I'll do that in progress as well. So finally, I'll go ahead and work on the last piece. Oh, it said ID is required, obviously, because I click on that and we've got to search for ID. And I'm not going to grab this ID. I need to grab the SharePoint list ID. And there you go. I'll go and click on save. So now let's work on the last piece. So I'll scroll a little bit to the right. Now I'm going to focus my attention on case negative. Now let me pause over here for a minute. I could have skipped this case negative. I could have actually just used the default one. But I chose to put the case negative over here. Just want to make sure that the flow works exactly how I do it. And honestly, I'm not thinking about this now. I'm thinking about this 2 weeks or 2 months or 1 year out. So when I have to come and troubleshoot this, I want to see, okay, this was inside the neutral, this is inside the negative. If I would have skipped the negative and put that into default, I would have to kind of rethink, what I was thinking a year ago. So I intentionally chose this as negative. All right, so some of the negative is going to be very similar to the other two ones we did. The only additional thing we'll put over here is we'll actually also send an email notification. So I'll come in now to the plus and I'm going to go ahead and now search for my var. In the var, I'll search for variables. I'm going to go ahead and set a value to the variable. And the variable that we're going to go and select is the var value. So I'll select the var value and click over here inside the value in the dynamic content, search for confidence scores. Moment I do that, it goes into an apply to each, which is fine. Next thing, we're going to go ahead and update our SharePoint list item. So I'll search for SharePoint. I'm actually going to click on that SharePoint. And here I'm going to search for update. And that is it, update item. Let me go grab the site. My site is the POC site. The list was a service desk one, so it's service desk tickets. And then the ID, well, the ID, I'll search for that as ID, and that is the SharePoint's ID column. Subject, I can go and do the subject, search for subject over here because here, the negative value, which is, for the negative, case negative, the priority value, yeah, we're going to bump this up to a high, all right? We want to go and get that high. And then over here, I want to put the status value, that's got it in progress. And then the sentiment score, well, we're going to go and grab that sentiment score. And it is going to be of type negative. So I search the negative and then it goes into an apply to each, which is perfect. And then the sentiment itself, well, that's a negative. And so there we go. We go and save that. Now, the one more step that I want to do over here is I also want to send an email notification. The email notification could go to a very specific person. Say this is a service desk person, all right? And the service desk, the team has a supervisor or it has a manager. Well, we can go and send that email notification to that person. And there's a few other tricks you can do over there where you can actually go and see who is the manager for either this department or who is the manager for this time span based on ticketing, the ticketing hours. So there's a few ways you can do that. For the sake of this demo, I'll just use directly my name. So what you have to do is get outside this apply to each. We are going to skip this action. We're going to come over here and I'm going to search for Outlook. So I'll search for Outlook and I'm going to select Office 365 Outlook and I'm going to search for send, and the send and email version 2. And then here, this is all pretty simple and straightforward, all right? So you can actually go and search for someone. I'll just go and search for myself. So I did that. I'll go ahead and now put in that, hey, a negative service desk ticket has been submitted, right? And instead of me saying negative, I could have actually just gone and gotten that negative over there, but I'll just submit that term as negative. And then here, I'll actually put some text. I'll say, hi, a new request was submitted by, I'll go ahead and get it from the SharePoint list. So I go in from the SharePoint list and I go and get the created by display name. And then I finish off by saying has an overall negative score of, and then there's where I go ahead and get my negative score. Oh, I gotta delete that off right here. And I search for my negative score and I grab that. The moment I do that, it goes into an apply to each, which is fine because only one email will go out. Now you could leave it at this one over here, or you can actually go ahead and say, here is further information. And the further information is I'm going to go and give the subject and I'm going to go and give the description. So the subject in my case is going to be the subject that comes from the SharePoint list. So I type in subject, and that is this one when an item is created. And then inside the description, you put that in, and there you go. So believe it or not, we are actually done with the Power Automate piece over here. We'll run it a few times so we actually see some data coming in. But now let's go finish off on the Power Apps side. All right, so here in the Power Apps, Canvas apps, the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and break these galleries down. The first one is I'm going to keep one gallery as just regular, and then the other one is going to be the critical one. And for that, I got to make sure that I've actually expanded all of this over here because I'm a big fan of using these containers to make it responsive. So I just need to make sure that I've got the correct container selected, and that is it right over here. This is the bottom container. So this is the one that I'm going to go ahead and now select to be down. So this is the first gallery. This gallery, I'm going to actually go ahead and pull down a little bit. All right, I'm going to go make pull down. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and add a gallery, and I'm going to also add 2 labels. So first, actually, let's go and add a label. I'm going to go select the insert. I'm going to insert, and I'm going to actually add a label. And then the label, I'll actually intentionally go and put it on top of this one. And then I'll go ahead and just, increase its width. And over here, I'm not going to spend too much time on the responsive piece over here because I could have done some responsiveness, for the width and the height. That's not the point over here. I'll just go and actually just add the label right now. So this label, it's just going to be regular, right? And I'll go ahead and make sure that it is center right there. I'll go ahead and click on the coloring. I'll just make sure that it still remains nice and black, but I'll go ahead and change this one's fill to say light green. That way we actually know what it is. Might even change the font to about 14. But there you go. That's our regular one over here. On top of that, I'm going to go ahead and now add another gallery. And to make that easy, I'm actually going to select this gallery, and I'll go ahead and now click on copy. And I'll go ahead and actually select paste inside that container. And there we go. We've actually got this one over here. So what I'll do is I'll actually rename this one. I'll call this as critical tickets. All right. So now I've got this one over there. I'm going to move him up just a little bit because I need to also make sure that I've got grab this label. I'll do a Control C, Control V. I'm going to move this label up a little bit. And I'm going to change this color to, I believe I had used yellow. So I'll stick with yellow. And the color for this one, I'm going to call that as regular. This is going to be critical. Also make sure that I make this bold. Make sure that it is a little big. And so in this section, we've got now our 2 big galleries created. Now I need to start doing some filtering specifically for that critical gallery because tickets gallery is going to be good as is. In fact, I'll filter out some of the critical ones, but I just need to make sure that I got to filter the 2 galleries. And the filtering is really simple because we've gone and set up those columns on the SharePoint list. We just got to filter the columns based on that. So first thing, let's do the critical one. All right, so the critical gallery, I'm going to select that. I'll go to the items, I'll click on the formula bar, and I'm going to start by putting in filter. And I do the filter, the brackets automatically opens. Hit your end button, so you go all the way to the end. And when I hit on comma, I'm going to search for sentiment because that's the one that we created, the sentiment. And I click on equals, and this one's going to be under negative because I want to only get all those negative ones. Remember, in the SharePoint list, we are going ahead and updating it. Remember, using the Power Automate flow, we updated with the text negative, and that's what I'm going to do. Is I'll go ahead and do that. Now, you're not seeing any data coming in right now because we haven't actually added any on the SharePoint list side. But we'll do a test. The flow will kick off. It'll go ahead and put the negative, and we'll actually see some data over here. And let's finish off by going and putting it on the tickets gallery as well. And you guessed it, in the other ones, we're showing only negative. In this one, we're going to show everything which is not negative. And for that, I'll come back over here to the top. I'll click on filter. In the filter, again, it opens it up, comma. I'm going to select sentiment. Sentiment not equals negative. All right, so I'm going to say negative. All right, and I'll go ahead and close that. And there you go. So this one already showed up with some data. Why? Because there wasn't anything in the negative side. So let's pause over here. Let's go and add an entry and we'll make it look really sad. And then we'll see how the sentiment kicks in. I bet you it'll give us a negative, and at least we'll have some data over here because there's one little piece that we have to finish. So let's do a test. I'm gonna click on that. I'll click on plus, and in the plus, I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, lost the space bar on my laptop. All right, so that's a good one over here. And I'm gonna say, hello, my laptop has lost the space bar. Instead of changing the keyboard, can I get a new laptop? It is very sad that I haven't received a new laptop for the 6 years I have been with this company. I feel like crying. Okay, I'm putting in everything just so I can get a negative one, all right? And then for now, I can go and change this one to say low. I don't need to put any of this over here. I'll just make sure that I go and click on save. Save means it goes ahead and saves it to the SharePoint list. In the SharePoint list, it actually went ahead and now updates it over here. I should actually see a new item coming in. I'll click on that. You see that new item came in, lost the space bar. You can see that section over here. This will go ahead and trigger our flow very soon. So if I actually go and take a look at my flow, I don't see anything run because it's a brand new flow. And I've noticed this specifically for the SharePoint list side. For a fresh, brand new flow, the first time it gets triggered, it can take up to a minute for the first time it does that. Then after that, it goes really fast. It's just the first time. So I'll go and click on refresh. So I'll just make sure that my data is coming through. It is running. That's great. And then I'll go ahead and refresh it again. It succeeded, which means that if I go to my SharePoint list and if I go and refresh this one, see, it went and changed that into high. The value status was set to in progress, and we went and got a sentiment score of 80%. That's 0.8, and it's negative. So what I want to do is I want to come back to my Power Apps. And in my Power Apps, if I actually go and now refresh my data source, specifically the tickets one, we'll see the data comes through over here. And there you go. The data actually came in, which means our filter worked. Number 4 is not on the bottom gallery. It's on the top one. Now what we can do is we can do a little bit of cleaning up over here, and that's also fine. We can do that. But I don't want to spend my time on that. I want to add these 2 additional things because that's also very important. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually add the emoji. So I'll come over here to my insert and I'll go ahead and click on the icon, and I'll just go ahead and add the icon. And then once I add it over here, I will go ahead and actually search for sad. And I click on the emoji sad and it goes and changes that. It's one of the things I do to really make it really fast. And what I have to do is actually Control C on that one. And I'll actually go and click on this gallery in here, select somewhere inside and do a Control V. Oh, that went outside. I'll click somewhere inside the gallery. Just make sure you've clicked inside the gallery, do a Control V, and we've got this one over here as well. Right there. And we go ahead and move it over here. So we've got our 2 images done. One of the things I could have done was actually I could have done all of this inside one gallery. Then I could have gone ahead and duplicated that. So think about stuff like this, right? Make it easier. And I'll select that one. And then what I got to do is I got to make sure its color changes also based on what it is. So I'll select, go to my home tab. Here's the color. And in my color, I'm going to put in an if condition. So I'll make sure it's on the color. I'm going to click on the formula bar. And I'll also click this drop down so we can actually see what's going on. And I'll go and type in this if. I click on the if. Now I'll go to the next line right here. Make sure I click on home. And I'm going to say this item, if this item dot sentiment equals positive. All right. If it's positive, then go ahead and give me a green. Okay. Then go and give me a green. Otherwise, and in fact, for this section, I'm going to delete this one because I'm not even going to use that color. So I went into comma, hold my shift, enter, and I'll say this item dot sentiment equals negative, then go ahead and give me a red. All right. Otherwise, just give me, say, a blue violet. I believe that's the color I used over here. So now I went and did that, and there you go. This one worked because it was a negative sentiment, and therefore it went and gave it a green one, all right? Anything else, it would go ahead and put it blue, violet, whatever. But see, this is the piece that works over here. Other thing you want to do is you want to also go and give it a high or a negative, like what is the actual priority we set over there. So that piece, again, is right here. I'm going to click on somewhere inside, and over there, I'll click a label because I want to go grab a label and put it over here, right somewhere up on that. And this label, this item dot, I'm going to go and select that as its status. So the status dot value right there. So it is in progress. I go and grab that one. Do a Control C, Control V, grab that text over here. And then this one, it's priority. What is its priority? I'll grab that and I'll put the priority as value here. And then this one, for all the values of the color, we can go and put some fill condition for that as well. In fact, for this one, I can go and grab this emoji. I'll just go and at least copy it all. Do Control C. Go back to my the letter over there. Click on the home. Click on this color. Its color. Delete what it is. Paste it. And it takes care of that as well. It just works, and it works really well. You could do that for fill, which means you come over here to the fill. You paste that in as is. So it goes and gives you that color. This one, you can go ahead and leave that as the default, which is the color of the actual letter. Just send that as black, so that way it actually looks a little nice. That actually works really well. So we'll go and do that, center, go and make this one a little bit bigger. That actually looks a lot nice. But see, now it's actually beginning to look a lot like the app that I just demoed to you. Key things we did over here was we went ahead and made sure we split up the galleries. You got to do that, split the galleries up, and then you've got to go ahead and add the emojis, because the emojis and this text is what will tell you that, hey, this one's critical, and then this one is just a mild, or this one is just a normal. You know, that's how you do it. This is how we were able to accomplish that inside the Power Apps canvas. Hopefully this exercise was helpful to you as we went and used cognitive services sentiment analysis inside an existing app. The only thing over here is that I had to use sentiment analysis with the Power Automate flow. Currently, I'm not allowed to use that connector in Power Apps, but who knows, that might change in the future. So hopefully this was helpful. And as always, keep using Power Apps, Power Automate, and sentiment analysis. Hey everyone, hopefully you found this video useful. And if you did, can you help me help you? Can you subscribe to this YouTube channel? Because remember, I provide fresh content on a weekly basis, and it's 100% free. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much, and pass the word. But if you haven't, subscribe, click on the bell notification, and let the learning begin.